Bera. Doctor, too.
We'll go by doctor, because it is about serving your patients, and as a representative, it's about serving the people that you work for. And I work for all of you. I thought the pastor's comments, Jim's comments, were so apropos, because this is about service. What makes America the greatest nation on the planet is that we're in this together. That's who we are as Americans. And I never forget about that. When I first started talking about running, people just scratched their heads and said, "You're going to run for Congress? You've never run for office before." And what led me to run for Congress is because I'm so grateful for the opportunities that this country has not only given me and my parents, but the generations. I'm the product of parents that immigrated here in the 1950s with very little but a dream to create a better life. That is who we are as Americans. I'm a lifelong Californian, born and raised in this state. And I'm a product of the best that this country and this state has been able to offer, going to great public schools, being able to afford to go to college, having the freedom to, if I worked hard enough and tried hard enough, to accomplish whatever I could in my life. That is that ladder of opportunity that needs to exist for every kid and every American, and that's what we've got to fight for. Now, I often say this, I wish I could stand here and tell you that Washington wasn't dysfunctional. It is as dysfunctional as it looks like from the outside. And the dysfunction isn't because there aren't men and women who are going there wanting to do what's best for the country, wanting to come and serve the country. Rank and file, Democrats and Republicans, we can sit down and we get together and talk about how do we start moving things forward? How do we make sure we do what we've always done, which is leave our kids and grandkids better off than what we started with? How do we build for that future? And we can come up with great ideas. We may not agree on everything, but the truth is, when we're listening to one another and we're talking about ideas, we agree on the challenge, and we agree on most things. So why can't we start moving forward? It's because it's bottlenecked at the top, at the leadership level, where those in power want to stay in power, and those that are out of power want to get back into power. And that isn't what this is about. All of you stepped up to serve our country. You answered that call of duty to preserve the freedoms that we have. And that's what we have to get back to. But this isn't about what I can do for myself or for a political party. It's how do we serve the values and the interests of the United States of America as Americans. That's why the first group Jim alluded to that I joined when I first got there was this group called the Problem Solvers. I'm a co-chair of it now. It started with 23 Democrats and 17 Republicans coming together, many of us freshmen, but we now have some older guys and women as well, to really talk about moving this country forward, setting aside this bickering. And all we did was say, let's just get together on a regular basis, listen to one another, get to know each other, learn about our districts. And then this past week, we had a press conference. There were 71 of us, men and women. There were 8 senators there. And we unleashed a package of 9 bills that were designed to make government more efficient. And one of the bills was designed to say, let's audit every department in the government, not making any judgment, but there might be some programs that don't work very well, that were great ideas 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago, but they outlived their usefulness. That's what we would do in the private sector. We'd go through division by division, organization by organization. There may be programs that are still very necessary, but they need modernization. So let's just go through that in an easy way. There are a lot of veterans in this room. One of the bills that I co-sponsored came out of, I was sitting with a retired Army Colonel, Chris Gibson, who's a Republican from New York, and myself, and we were just sitting at a dinner together talking about things. I was looking at the world as a doctor, as someone who's run hospital systems. He's on the Veterans Committee, and we just talked about how this VA backlog, which is so embarrassing for us as a nation, and how the Department of Defense medical records don't communicate with the VA's medical records. So when you go from active duty into the VA system, your record should just move with you seamlessly. Well, that's one thing that we could fix. So we came up with a bill that we introduced in a bipartisan way. We've got tons of co-sponsors. Senator Bill Nelson on the Senate side introduced the same bill that just says that the DOD and the VA have to have a single medical record system. So when you're transitioning out there, your records move with you. Simple idea. It'll save lives, it'll save dollars, and it'll help us reduce this backlog, and it's the right thing to do for men and women who have served our country. So it's going into Washington, D.C. with that attitude. None of us grew up in a country, I know I certainly did not grow up in a country where we talked about what we couldn't do, and we complained and said, well, I can't do that, and I can't do that, and we can't do that. I grew up in a country where we said, here's what we're going to do, and then we went out and did it. And that is what we represent as Americans, that can-do spirit. We need the president to get out there and give us that vision of where we want to go, because we're starved for it. And then we'll rally. We know how to get there. We're fighters, and we'll get there. So let's start talking about what we can do, and then let's go about and get about the business of getting it done. That's going to start from the rank and file members, in Congress, because we're rooted in the community, taking this country back, taking the community back, and moving us forward, and making this about the United States of America. We've got challenges, and every generation's had challenges, but let's rise to those challenges. And every other country on this planet would love to have the challenges that we face. They would love to have the freedoms that we have, and that is really worth preserving. Now, the best part of being an American and the best part of who we are as a community in the Sacramento region is what Jim's doing in this place. Recognizing a need and then stepping up and saying, how can I get back to folks that might be hurting, to veterans who, and we're seeing a lot of men and women coming back from Iraq, Afghanistan, and unfortunately, I'm going to guess there's some Vietnam veterans here, and we didn't do a good job when we were coming back from the Vietnam War to talk about post-traumatic stress disorder, to actively create a context where we could talk about these things, where we could keep families whole and welcome folks back. But we've got to do a better job of that, of welcoming and applauding our heroes as they return, but then also making sure they're able to get back on their feet, their families are able to get back on their feet, and they're able to build a future for them. Well, what you're doing here represents the best spirit of that. And, the reason why I'm here today is, early on when we talked about how we had to make sacrifices, and, the ethics I was raised with by my parents is you don't ask everyone else to make a sacrifice first. As leaders, you make the sacrifice first, and you lead by example. So, the federal budget's